Hello everybody, welcome to Catherine Sews. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is going to be a fun sweater upcycle. My friend Tammy just recently sent a photo of herself wearing a sweater that she had just found at a thrift store. She sent it to the group chat and we all just loved it, and her comment was, I just thrifted this awesome sweater and now I want to find out how to recreate it. So I got that text message literally when I was on my way to Salvation Army. Like I was like 2 blocks away from Salvation Army and I just thought, oh, I love that. Let's do it. And I went directly to men's sweaters. I knew I wanted big pieces of knit fabric that I can cut up. And I think men's sweaters are just more bang for your buck. You just get a bigger item for about the same price. So I found a couple of good sweaters, and I actually had one in my own closet that is nice in the mix. But you know, the sweaters even at Salvation Army were $10 to $14 each. So that would add up quickly. So what I did was I ended up going into the scarf section and found a bunch of knitted scarves, which I think will just be perfect for this project. So then the next thing I needed to do was find a basic shape. Tammy's is quite a dolman sleeve, meaning it's really full under the arm, which doesn't really suit me very well. I'll have it a little bit dolman just for the ease of construction, but not as much. It'll be kind of like this. I recently thrifted this sweater, which I know it goes with everything really nicely, but I don't want to cut this one up because I just like it as it is. What I'm going to do with this one though is trace it off for my basic shape. It's not a symmetrical garment though, so I'm going to trace it onto folded paper and then cut it and open it up to the full size of the actual sweater and then mark it up into the different sections that I want and then go from there. So I don't think it's going to be super challenging. I think it's going to be really fun, and I think it's going to end up being really, really cute. So that's the first thing I need to do is trace it out on paper, which means I got to clear off my cutting table because there's about 150 projects going on there. So give me a minute to clean up and then we'll get busy. So I got the idea of doing patterns on gift wrapping from Alicia at Thoughtful Creativity. And I've been doing it this way ever since I saw her do it. And then this gift wrap I actually thrifted. So that I thought was even more exciting. $1 for this roll, and it's super wide, so it's really good for patterns. Okay, so I just need to fold my sweater in half and draw a center line, and then I know where to fold my paper. And because it's going to be more or less a dolman sleeve, I want to trace it all in one. I'm not making a separate sleeve and body pattern. So I think I'm going to make the front and back the same. The only difference will be in the neckline. So I'm putting the fold of the sweater right onto the fold of the paper. So I just need to make sure that it's sitting with the sleeve extended out. Like I don't want to have a big fold in here. So just extend out that sleeve. Okay, good. So I would trace this with a pencil, except I want you to be able to see it. So I'm going to use a Sharpie. I'm going to fill in this space a little bit, right? This sweater has a bit of a curved bottom to it. I think I'll keep that at least to start with. See what I mean? It's a little bit of a dolman, but I'm not doing too much. So there we go. That's my basic shape. And you might have noticed I traced it out a little bit bigger than the sweater, so I'm kind of including seam allowance. It's a pretty rough line, so I can clean it up with my Variform hip curve and my see-through ruler. I definitely want a right angle at the fold, at the top and the bottom. A little bit of a curve on the shoulder. And this sweater sits just a little bit big on my hip. I'm going to start by taking 1 inch off the side there. That'll be fine. Just one more piece of information I need, and that is the curve of the front neck. And a right angle here. You need a right angle there or else you'll end up with a bit of a V. So now I need to cut this out, but I don't want it to shift, so I'll throw in a few more staples. So I'm not going to cut the front neck. I'm just going to cut the back, and then I'll cut this down after I've cut out the back. Now, of course, I don't need to make this exactly like Tammy's, but I think I will kind of base it on hers just to make life easy. So I noticed that on hers, on one side it comes closer to the neck, and on the other side it's farther from the neck. And then those 2 points converge at the bottom, kind of like that. If I butt my see-through ruler up against the curved ruler, then I can connect all the way from one to the other with a nice smooth curve. And my black friction pen seems to be choosing today to die. Okay, well, hopefully I can just get enough life out of it to finish. That's my center panel. And then the sleeve is actually starting down here, like past the curve. So I am going to be probably just using the sleeve of a sweater. And I probably just need it that long. So again, it's a right angle at that seam. And the two don't have to be exactly the same. So I will just sort of wing that over here. Good. This side is then divided vertically, and this side is divided vertically and horizontally. So it's going to come in a little closer to there and to about here. Alrighty. And a little bit of a skinnier piece here. And you know what? I think because this is a skinny piece, I'll be using a scarf. Do I need to straighten that line out? I kind of think so. Well, that's the beauty of the friction pens, is that they are erasable. There we go. This is the fourth different ruler I'm using here. I think my 3-inch ruler will be perfect here. 3-inch strip all the way down. And then this one gets the horizontal cut somewhere right about there. You know what? It's going to be easier if my two sleeves are the same length. And then I don't have to worry about what's right and what's left. They were rarely close, but let's make them exactly the same. So that's the only line I can cut together. So this is the sleeve. And this edge I have to place on the fold. And I have to cut 2 on the fold. Good. Well, let's just call this the center panel. And I'm Canadian, so I spell it that way. This is the right middle panel, and this is the left middle panel. Left upper side panel, left lower side, and right side panel. Good. If I was doing this out of a fine knit or a woven, I would put notches in various places so I can get it back together properly. But on knits like that, those sweater knits, I'm going to lose my notches for sure. So I think I'm going to just proceed with no notches. So all of these are cut too, because I'm doing the same to front and back. Okay, so those are all my puzzle pieces. So now I'm going to cut them out of different sweaters, scarves, whatever, but I have to add seam allowance to each piece that I cut. I cannot forget to do that. I could tape on seam allowance to all of these, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to cut all my sweater pieces like a finger width bigger than all of these pieces. So that'll be fine. I think I like the look of these sleeves. So I'm just going to use the sleeves from here. And I know there's going to be a lot of knit pieces left, but don't worry because I have an idea for these scraps and more. Red center and a gray scarf here. Lower left. Another scarf for the middle. And then I have this one. Oh, I kind of like that. All right, so the only thing I haven't got a piece designated for is this. So maybe this scarf is going to have to be there. And then I just need, this is a small piece. Maybe I can just get some of the red over here as well. Yay. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Okay, I think I'm happy. So maybe I'll just kind of fold these up with their piece. This one goes with the red. Maybe I'll start with cutting that. So it was important that I wash all of these when I got home because, first of all, I always do anyway. When I'm thrifting, I always throw everything in the wash as long as it's washable. But because they're all different fabrics, it was important that I make sure they've all been pre-washed just in case they decide to shrink differently or whatever. Alrighty, this has a nice ribbing on the bottom. And of course, the neckline is already different, so I don't even have to worry about that. I can start with the neckline like this. If I don't like it, I can change it. But I might as well keep it that length, right? Okay, and I'll just make a note for the next piece that I cut. I'm actually cutting this piece 2 inches longer on the front, 3 inches longer on the back, because of that difference here. Here we go. All right, so remember, I'm cutting a finger width away. how exciting. There's my first piece. Again, I'm just going to fold that up with its piece. So this is the side, and then it comes down in that curve, right? And I've already cut 2 inches longer here. So because this is the side seam, I could place it on the side seam here. So I'm going to add on 3 inches in length. I only need 2 for the front, but I need 3 for the back. And I might just be overcomplicating things for myself here. I might end up taking all that off. So that's all joined together, right? It's nice. Okay, so I'll fold that up. So I love this cutting mat and my 3-inch ruler that I got at Quality Sewing. It's just like a little bit elevated over what I had before. It's just a little bit nicer. So this will fit. And then I'll get my extra 2 inches there. Oh, but I have to add seam allowance, so I'm like finger width away from that edge. That works. So again, it was 2 inches on the front, but 3 on the back. Okay, beautiful. Just barely fitting. I can't even add the extra 2 inches. I'll leave the fringe attached just in case I need it. I don't really know how that's going to work out. I don't know what's going to happen at the bottom edge. We shall have to see. And I put away my cutting mat and then remembered about sleeves. So there we go. Well, that's something. I don't know exactly if it's what I had in mind, but it's something. Of course, I'll be sewing all those vertical seams together. But first is this one little horizontal seam. That seam's already closed. So before I sew it to here, I have to close this. And then this red is already closed at the top. So, and then fix it all from there. Okay, no problem. I want to do this one first so that I use white thread. I definitely don't want to have black thread in there. So I'll use white thread, get this one done first, then change my thread to black. So as I'm sewing this, I don't want it to get distorted and stretched out. So what I think might be a good idea would be to use something like twill tape, or this is hem tape. If I sew the white or the black into those top seams, it'll stop them from stretching out and getting distorted. What I want to do is just make a mark on here. I've got that finger width of seam allowance on both sides, so about like that. That's how big this piece should be at the top. And I don't want to cut it here because I think I'm going to want to hold on to the end of it. So that I think is going to work well. Going back to the pattern piece helps me to know for sure that I've got a good measurement there. And then I'll just do these 3 in a row on the black. So there's my finger width. So I'll do them in the order that they're laying here just to keep myself organized. Okay, right sides together, and I'll just have this laying right on top and just sew like that. That'll be good. It's always easiest to have the non-stretchy thing on top, and it helps you to control the stretch underneath. So even though this is quite a chunky knit, I think I'm not going to have any problem at all sewing it with a regular needle, regular thread, regular stitch. I probably will lengthen my stitch length just because it is thick. So I'm going to increase the stitch length to 3.5. But I'm sewing at the inner edge of that hem tape. And then you know what? I think I'm going to sew at the outer edge as well, just so I don't have to serge this. I've got black thread in my serger right now. I don't want to have to change it just for this 4-inch little strip. Well, that is just working great. The knit didn't get stretched out at all. So now I can cut off the excess and just do the other side. Oh, I could make it really nice if I trimmed down my seam allowance and then stitch that down. That would be fancy. Ooh, fancy. Look at that. That looks good. So this is the inside. Nobody's going to see it, but I'll know it looks fancy on the inside. Good, nice and stable. The outside looks good, and it's just not going to stretch and droop on that shoulder seam. I am very happy with that. This is working nicely. I know that mark is correct, but look at, like, that could stretch another 3 inches easily. So I think this is working well for me. I just get the mark right at the end there, and then a couple clips in between. My left hand is sort of controlling the knit and keeping it sort of nicely distributed underneath the hem tape. I don't want it bunching up like that, so I just want to keep it laying smoothly under the hem tape. And then the next piece. So I just had these 3 pieces in a pile beside me in the same order that I had marked them. There's my second mark. And there's my last mark. There's my last mark. So by placing those marks, I could tell that each piece of the sweater stayed the exact same size that I wanted it to be. Nothing got stretched out of shape, so that worked well. All right, so now I can cut that. And then I think I'll do the same thing again, just trim my seam allowance. I'm trimming the one that's on top just a little closer, just to reduce the bulk, and then just trimming a little bit off the lower layer. And this is where your sewing room gets pretty messy when you're cutting up knits like this. And I might as well keep these together for now, like sewing them all in a line like that is kind of convenient. I will be cutting them apart, but I don't think I need to do it yet. This is called grading the seam allowance. Like if you cut one seam allowance a little shorter than the other so that they don't end at the same spot and kind of make a lump. So now I'm pushing everything toward the back. And if I'm going to be smart, then I'm going to try to run the left-hand side of the presser foot along my first line of stitching so that if it does show on the other side, like sometimes in the chunky knit it won't really show, but this might show and it would look good if it was nice and parallel. So even though I'm sewing these all in one line, I'm still back tacking at the beginning and end of each one. Very nice, nice and flat and not stretched out. So you can see there, it just doesn't show on the chunkier knits, but on these smoother knits, it's going to show. And I wobbled a bit. Am I going to concern myself about that wobble? You know what? No, I don't think I am. We are going to persevere and go and move forward. I have to combine these 2 first. So I'm putting this back to being right sides together and I'll serge the curve and then I'll be able to put these 2 together and serge those right side together. And then all verticals and then set the sleeve and then we're on our way. Alright, so I just took this piece to the serger and serged the curve there and then put it right side together with the red and serged here. And I don't think I need to put any hem tape or twill tape because these are not kind of like weight bearing seams, right? This shoulder seam, like the whole weight of the sweater is going to be hanging off of that shoulder seam. So over time it would really stretch and droop. But here it's not carrying the weight of the sweater. And so I think we're fine. It did turn out the red seemed to be bigger somehow than the black and white. So I'm just going to trim that. Okay, and now it's all about the verticals. I can take these 2 and go right side together. Now, how do I do that? This way, I guess. Good, so those seem to be meeting up well at the bottom. And this white one has a much more stable edge. This is the cut edge here, right? So having the stable edge or the non-stretchy edge facing up makes it a lot easier to control. Like having that on top, just the same way the hem tape worked. Okay, let's go serge that. So even though this is a white piece, because it's joining a red and black piece, then I don't mind using the black thread on the serger. Yeah, you see like that? I think is fine. So I'm using the serger. If I didn't have a serger, I could just sew 2 lines of straight stitch or 1 line of straight stitch and then zigzag my edge. Either way works fine, but once you have a serger, you're going to love it. And if you're thinking about a serger, this is a really great time to get one because my discount code for quality sewing is good until the end of September for 10% off. Use the code CS10 at QualitySewing.com. And while you're at QualitySewing.com, you could order yourself a little set of clips and get a discount on those too. They're so handy to have. Okay, oh my gosh, yes. Oh, I love the look of that. So we're just kind of building here. So now these two are going to go right side together. So I'll just flip that over and catch the two of them together. I have a feeling that the whole thing is going to be too long as is. So I'm going to probably cut it off a little bit shorter and just do a hem on the bottom. So instead of using this ribbing that's at the bottom of the red one, I think that's probably going to get chopped off. And I haven't changed anything about my serger. I haven't changed the differential feed. It's just that one stitch length is at 3. Just everything normal here so far. When you're upcycling, you will have moments like this where you think, what in the bloody hell was I thinking? Like, what kind of monstrosity am I creating at the moment? Do not despair. This is when you take a break, you reevaluate, and you persevere. It's not there yet, but I have faith. So this little black piece that I've got around my neck is the hem from that butterfly sweater that I put on the back of the army jacket. So I'm thinking that this neckline really does look like a men's sweater. I'm not happy with it. So I might cut that down and put black. I know that that does not fix the problem. I do like the sleeves. The sleeves are actually like making me think that there's hope because the sleeves are kind of cool. The rest of it at this point is not my style. This is not happening for me. I've got about 6 inches probably folded up there to make it shorter. And then this seam is hitting now at a funny place. It's just too low. I want to bring it up to my waist. So about 3 inches up. And then the white, I'm thinking, should maybe be tapered, like getting skinnier at the bottom. Maybe. I know that half of you just clicked off of this video because you're thinking there's no hope here, but there's hope. I think we will persevere. So I have to open up here, at least a few inches past the waist, front and back, and then open up this or just cut that seam, move this up about 3 inches. And then when I sew it back on, that's, I think, when I'll taper. Since I want it all smaller anyway, like more tapered, I'm just going to cut these. There's no reason why I need to just remove all that serging. I'm just going to chop it off. That didn't take too long. All right, so I think I'll just cut off whatever that is, 3 inches, and then I'll re-sew this one on. I kind of just want to have a solution in my mind. Like I want to take my break on a positive note so that I feel motivated to come back to it. I think if you take a break when you're feeling down about it, it makes it a lot harder to get the motivation back up. Okay, now, if you were smarter than me and a lot less cocky, you would baste that and try it on again. That would be so smart. But I'm just going to serge it. Here we go. And I also think I better go make dinner. And then I'll come back to this tomorrow. That little break I took turned into a few days. This has been sitting here unattended this whole time, but it's actually much better than last time I tried it on because before I took that break, I did some work here, right? I tapered this, so I'm liking all of this so much better. And the sleeves were too long. They're overlapping by about this much right now, but I kind of like the way it looks coming out from under this. So I think I'm going to sew those rather than sewing a seam like this here. I think I'll sew kind of an overlapping seam and then trim away the extra. So I'll do the same on both sides. So I've got this much overlap. I think what I might do is maybe 2 rows of a zigzag stitch and then trim away the excess on both sides, like trim away this inside and that. Okay, so let's go do that. Okay, so I am wrestling this sweater under the presser foot. I've got the sleeve that I'm trying to tackle inside out, and I'm kind of going down into the tube of that sleeve where these overlap. It was not fun, but I think I'm winning. So I've got it set on a zigzag that's 3.5 millimeters wide and 3 long. I'm just starting anywhere, and I will just go around this circle till I get back to where I started and then do a second line. It's a little bit crazy, a little bit thick to work with. The machine is handling it well. It's a lot for me to handle. It's a lot of thickness here. And I have to sort of feel what's going on underneath. And I have to be careful of my pins. They're like impossible to see. Okay, there's one pin. working in a little donut like this is never that much fun. Not recommended. It would have, ouch. It would have been better to open up the seam, I think, or do this, oh my goodness, before I closed up that seam. But this is an afterthought. You know, sometimes you gotta just roll with the punches. Okay, so I made it around once. Before I do a second line, I'm going to try it on and make sure I'm happy with everything. That was not the highlight of my day. That was hard. Okay, yes, I really like it. It was worth it. So now I'm going to do that second line, but this time I'll just have the sleeve. It's not inside out, right? The sleeve is now right side out. So when I go into the donut, I'm seeing the inside of it. Yeah, I think it does make a difference. I can see my line of zigzagging a little bit easier from this side. So I'm going to do a line just like a half an inch away from that and then trim off the excess of both sides. You just want to make sure it feels like it's laying flat. So what you can't see, you have to feel. Somehow that was way easier. I guess because I wasn't dealing with pins and everything. Okay, good. So now I'm going to cut off this part of the sleeve that's on the inside. And then I'll trim away a little bit of what's on the outside. These little Henkel's scissors are perfect for this job. Just much easier to deal with than my big scissors for a little job like this. Okay, now here's a little trick. This knit got pulled quite a bit, and so there's a couple big loops. So just take a pin, poke it through your knit. Take that little loop that's sticking out and wrap it around the pin a few times and just pull it to the inside. There. Gone. And this one too, poke it in, wrap around, and then just pull it to the inside. Because you can't really cut off those little loops because you'll have a hole in the knit. So you just pull them through to the other side. And if you get a snag on a finer knit, then you just use a finer pin. Like one of these ones without the glass head. Just wrap it around and then pull it through to the back. Might take a little wiggling. And then you can just pull it through to the back, and then the front is fine. Good. This half is all working well now. I'm happy with all that. And this length is good. I'll be shortening the whole thing and just doing a hem. So I'm going to fold this red part in half. And remember, it wasn't symmetrical, so I'm just bringing the neckline together, which I will be changing, but for now, that'll do. And then the sleeve needs to duplicate that sleeve. This piece will be here. So that's quite a difference in length. What is that, like 6 inches that I'm making this shorter? So I might start just building in this way now. So it's another wrestling match with the sleeve, but this time it won't be as bad because it's only this piece. I have less going on here. So it's a little bit less fabric to wrestle around with. That seems good. And it'll be easier to see my pins on this one too. So I'm doing a better job of getting this seam in line with the side seam on this sleeve. I thought I had it on this one, but after all that wrestling, it really shifted around and I'm not going back in to fix it. I tried it on, it looks fine, like it's not gonna bother me. Okay, and then that same big zigzag. Again, I'm starting with the sleeve turned inside out and going inside that donut. Oh, and I pointed my pins in the wrong direction. I should have gone sideways so that I don't have to think about the direction. Oh well, here we go. With the sleeve right side out, I'll go around one more time, this time from the inside. And it probably isn't necessary to switch sides like this. I could have done a second round from the outside. I don't know, it just seems nice to do it both directions. It's fine. You probably can't see, but I can see the line of zigzag here, and I'm just following the left side of my presser foot along that line of zigzag. All right, and then chop off the excess on the inside. And then there's not really much excess to chop off on the outside. I think mainly just threads, right? I could chop off some of this, but I don't really feel the need. All right, so I have one more strip to put in, and I think I'm just going to baste it in and try it on and make sure I'm happy with the fit before I do any more serging. I was just a little overly confident on the last one. So this seems to be the top of the shoulder. Put that to the seam, and I'm going right side together on these. Now, the sleeves, it would have been a bajillion times easier to sew the sleeve that way too, like right side together. So I'd have the tube of this inside this opening inside out, right? Like I would just have it like this and sew it right side together. That would have been way easier. I, for whatever reason, just decided I really like the look of this ribbing coming out from under. So to give yourself a break, you can just sew that right side together. This edge is curling, so I'll have that side up when I sew and then definitely when I serge so that I make sure I'm able to unroll it as I go. And I did think about using that fringe at the bottom of the sweater, but I kind of shied away from it, thinking it might look funny if just one segment has a fringe. So right now, the fringe is right inside where I'll be cutting off that extra length. So here we go. Let's baste that. So for basting, I'm using a regular straight stitch, but with a length of 4 millimeters, just so I can easily pull it out if I want to do any tweaking of the fit here. Here you can see on the back neck, they've got this extra piece of fabric and it's on that lengthwise grain, which has very little stretch. And so that's very similar to what I did here with that hem tape, right? It's all just about keeping the knit stable where you don't want it to stretch out. Okay, then that one goes there. Getting these right side together. I guess I have to flip this whole thing inside out and put this part inside it. Bring those two seams together. Okay, and back we go. I ran out of bobbin thread a foot ago. No worries. Okay, new bobbin. Now I can finish off this edge here and then try it on. Okay, let's see. Okay, we're definitely making progress. We're not 100% there yet, but it's definitely better. So I do like the sleeves now. The little turn back cuff, that just was a happy accident. They were still too long. And I do kind of like the look of very, very long sleeves, but the whole thing could end up looking a little bedraggled if I keep the sleeves that long. But anyway, that's working. The body is almost there. I think I just need to now make it a little bit more flattering. So it's still quite roomy, which is fine. But what I really don't like, it seems like both of these seams kind of bow out right over my tummy, which is not flattering. So I want to bring them in and create the illusion of the seams coming in. Even if my tummy doesn't go in there, I can create the illusion. This one can come in a bit closer, maybe about like that, and then definitely not curve out at the tummy. That's no good. Coming in is better than going out. Okay, so somewhat like that. I will smooth out those curves as I get to them, but basically I'm getting rid of this. It's also going to be shorter, right? So I don't even think I need to draw that. I'll just fold it in half and then follow this shorter line. So I think it's coming along. Okay, neckline. You see what I mean about this neckline? It really does just like look like a men's sweater, and I don't want that. So this is the top of the sleeve that I cut off from this. So that's a possibility because it's quite stretchy and it could end up kind of being a neckline like that, which is maybe perfect. I wasn't sure if I wanted to add another element in there, but it does tie together with the sleeve. So maybe that's perfect. I don't know. So that is probably my best option. But before I do that, what I'm going to try is to just use what's there, but separate it off, stretch it down, and then sew it back on. I'll try that. And if it doesn't work, then we'll go with this. But if I can make that work, it's kind of good to know that you can sometimes, on t-shirts, this works quite easily. On a sweater, I don't know if I can nicely separate it, stretch it more, and bring it down. Just by bringing it down, I feel so much better. It feels a lot more like me, and I think I can make this work from here. Okay, let's try all that. So the white is going to be a little bit tapered, and I think that's fine. So I'm just cutting off just the serging only, like just that little edge. And then I've got my line here. I'm just going to move the edge of the white over to it. I don't want to take off more off the white. I just want to take off from the red there. And then I can't use my clips until I trim off the red. I'm not ready to trim. Okay, good. And then the other side of the red that I want to take in is just basted. So I will pull that out and then move it over. Oh, there we go. Move it over in the same way. So that won't be too bad. Okay, I'll baste that and then try it on again. Okay, the lines are so much better now. So now I am going to serge. And I think I'm just going to do all the trimming on the serger. I don't think I'll regret this. So if you don't have a serger, this is where you would just zigzag your edges. It makes me feel a little bit more cautious if I serge or zigzag and then trim. Like I'm kind of doing both at the same time here. But if I was using a zigzag, I would probably zigzag first and then cut. I'm just increasing the stitch length a bit over this chunky knit. So now all the seams look quite wiggly, so I want to give them a nice steam. So I've got my iron set fairly low. It's at wool, and I got lots of water in there. And then I just let it cool in that position, but if you have a clapper, that helps absorb the water out of it and really makes it nice and flat. Now I want to just keep it nice and smooth along the back and then fold it in half. That's the determining factor. That is as long as I can go. And I think that that was a pretty good length. I'm going to start by cutting this longer length of the back. Ending with more or less a right angle at the fold. And then the front will go shorter. So I'll move the back out of the way. You know what? And while we're here, let's look at the neck together. I think that I can undo everything except I'll leave the back together. And I'm going to just try this. If it doesn't work, I'll just cut it all off and we'll go with the black and white. So I think, I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is a little chain stitch going around the neck there. Doesn't that look like a little chain? I think so. There goes nothing. So if I undo that little chain, I might still need to unpick. Oh, no, I don't need to unpick the serging. Okay, that's exciting. So I'm just taking out that little chain, kind of one loop at a time. And then I'll see if I can stretch it lower. I have to be careful that I'm not unraveling this neckline. I have to be super careful about that. But that's, I think, where these, the little chain loops are actually the loops of the neckband itself. They're kind of poked right through. That's interesting. Okay, that's going to take some patience. I'll be back in a little while. So I spent quite a bit of time taking all those little loops out, and it was just a matter of like pick, no special tricks or anything. And this is the serged edge of like the original neckline. These were just joined like that before. Since taking it out though, everything seems to have like released and relaxed, and this band can now stretch more and come down, and with a little bit of steam it's going to be just perfect. I'm just going to bring those edges together, and I think I'll do a zigzag in black thread right over all those loops, and then I think I'll just trim away the inside, and I feel pretty confident that that's going to work fine and just give me that more relaxed, slightly more feminine neckline. Because I just felt like I was wearing Uncle Bob's sweater still, with that higher neckline. It still just looked very masculine. So it's coming apart a little bit here. There were a couple parts that were slightly more of a struggle to undo, and I think that's okay though. If I go over it with the black thread in my zigzag, I think it's going to be fine. So now I've got to work that neckline in and space it out kind of evenly and have it look more or less symmetrical. Okay, so I think about like that is going to be fine. I have a zigzag that is 3.5 millimeters wide and 2.5 millimeters long. I think that should be fine for this. I did consider going through by hand and catching all those loops, and I lost interest in that idea pretty quickly. I think the zigzag will just take care of that for me. I can tuck in some of those threads. So I don't want it to look raggedy like that. I'm going to try it on, make sure I'm happy with how it's sitting. And if I am, then I'll do a second row of zigzag, maybe a bit wider to catch those little loops because I do want that laying flat. The neckline is good now. I'm happy with it. So I will just go over that with another zigzag stitch. Okay, 3.5 and 3.5. And you know what? The first line blends right in. You really don't see it. So I'm thinking the second line will blend in as well. And I just want to really catch those loops. Yeah, that's better. It still needs some steam. Most areas are good now, but if there's some spots that are still loopy, I'm not worried about it running because I've got 2 lines of zigzag. So I think I'm fine to just cut those loops off now. I mean, I could go over it a 3rd time. You know what? Let's try. Let's go over just that little bad section a 3rd time. Oh, that's got it. There might be just the odd little bit to cut off. Good, I'm happy. Like, I'm actually surprised at how well that went. And then the inside can just be trimmed away. It also has those 3 lines of zigzag securing it, so I don't need to leave this extra. So look, I'm only cutting off about 1/2 inch off that neckline, but you'll be surprised at how much more relaxed it looks. The neck's done. All right. I'm happy. So you know what that means? All we have left is the hem. So I'm starting at the side seam and I'm just going to serge my way around. And however I pressed my seam is the way I want it to stay as I serge over that edge. If you don't have a serger, a nice way to finish this hem would be to sew on some of that hem tape like what I started with at the shoulders. Sew that on, then you'd hem the top edge of that. So I'm going to take that to the iron and press up the amount I want because I have to make a nice curve. So let's take that to the iron. So at the ironing board here, I'm just turning up basically a thumb width or 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters, and I want to make that into a nice curve. I think I will put a few clips just so it stays put as I move it around. And you know what? This is not perfect, right? This whole sweater is, some people call my army jacket a Franken jacket. This is a Franken sweater, but let's embrace it. So you see how this is bigger than my thumb? As long as I have a nice curve here, I'm good. And I think I'll keep the same zigzag stitch going. And I'm going to zigzag right on top of the serging. If you're using hem tape, you would just zigzag at the top of your hem tape. All right, here we go. So the zigzag is at 3.5 and 3.5. And I'm sewing up on the serging up here. And I can keep my eye right here at the 1 inch line just to stay straight. But honestly, the black blends in so well, except on the white here. I'm going to have to be a little bit careful on the white. Done everything. I'm going to trim any threads that might be there, give this hem a final press, and then show you the finished product. Okay, I was done. I was finished. I filmed the ending, and I really like this. I think that's really fun. I like that it's sort of swingy. I was done. And then I went like this. Right? I went like that, and I think that's better. I think that's better. So give me 5 minutes. What I'm gonna do is, I've got this whole sweater, right? It's got the ribbing on the bottom. I'm gonna cut off like a 3-inch strip. I'm gonna cut this off straight, serge it on, Bob's your uncle, and then I think that's gonna be better. I think it's gonna be 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Hang on. Okay, hopefully it's better. Okay, maybe it took a little bit more than 5 minutes, but I really like it even more now. I liked it before. I liked the swing, but you know what? I feel like I'm going to wear this more. It feels a little bit more like me. It just kind of is easier for me to wear and incorporate into my wardrobe. So once again, you never know where upcycling is going to lead you. Tammy's sweater, I love that for her. And that was a great jumping off point for me. And then my sweater just ends up in a different direction. That just goes to show you that when you upcycle, your clothes become absolutely unique to you and your personality. The neckline worked out great. Remember, it was sitting up here. So it's just that much more relaxed. Apart from the stitch removal, it really wasn't difficult at all. That zigzag stitch just took care of everything. So hopefully you like it too. Hopefully you learned a little something. And until next time on Catherine Sews, you take care.